What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Mental Health Movement Podcast, Voice for the Voiceless. I am your host, Chris. Today, we have a very special episode with a special guest who I'm going to bring in here in a second. But today, we're going to talk about the celebration of life. Basically, kind of want to start from when we were kids to where we're at now as adults. Just kind of like talk about birthdays and the aspect of why some people don't like celebrating birthdays, why I celebrate every single day of my life, just earn every single day. Please help me welcome Vince. Vince, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good, brother. How you?
I'm doing good, man. Really glad that you came on here and glad I came up with the topic idea because I really wasn't sure what we were going to record on, being as though things were kind of thrown for a whirl on my recording schedule. But happy that you came on and super grateful. So thank you again.
Yes, sir.
Um, so I just kind of want to, you know, topic of discussion is birthdays. It's as adults, as men, it's just kind of like we're in a society where most people our age just don't really care about birthdays. Quite frankly, it's just like, oh, it's just another day. I'm just turning this age, whatever. And then you have that fear aspect of, oh my God, I'm turning 30 this year. Oh my God, I'm turning 31 this year, whatever it is. And I kind of did something similar to this last year where I talked about why people feel the way that they do. This year, I want to run it back, but I want to have somebody else's perspective on it, instead of just giving details on why people feel the way that they feel. So I guess let's just start from when we were kids, man. Like, what's your earliest memory of a birthday party? Like, did you ever have a birthday party that ever stuck out to you, like any age?
Man, I think for me, one of the ones that stuck out. So back in Tucson, there's this ice skating rink, and it's fucking weird to have one middle of fucking Arizona, but they had one indoor. Uh, I think I was like 6 or 7 at the time, and they had gotten this big ass fucking birthday party together. Went there, went to the ice skating rink, and we just skated, fucking played around on the ice for hours, and just fucked off for a while. That's pretty much my earliest recollection of birthday parties. And I know I had them before that, but it's like didn't really stick out as much. I mean, there was like skate country where you'd go roller skating and shit, or pool party at the house or whatever, but that one was probably, for the time that I was and for the age that I was probably the most fun that I had at that time. And
Yeah, so one of my guests that I had on here a couple episodes ago was Sydney. Um, she was the one that covers like childhood trauma and stuff, and just trying to help people recover from that said trauma. She had posted something on her Instagram feed that says, "What's your fondest childhood memory?" And I sat there thinking about it before I responded to her. I'm like, honestly, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you what my fondest memories were as a kid because of my parents. And, again, this isn't me trashing their parental style. And, I was the firstborn. So it's just kind of, they're figuring shit out with me. And honestly, I was a project kid, if we're being honest. And unfortunately, that came with its own trials and tribulations of, not knowing how to discipline a kid properly, them kind of like unintentionally vomiting their childhood trauma onto me. And
yeah,
I think the earliest memory I have myself, which is kind of funny, you mentioned ice skating, was me. It was a rollerblading arena, roller skate arena. It was Astro Skate. We used to do like little pizza parties in there. Invite maybe like one or two friends, if that. I mean, I don't think I have any childhood friends that I talk to still to this day. Maybe Nicole, the one I just recorded with, Nicole and Victoria. Um, but yeah, man, it's hard digging up things when you're a kid because none of it really stuck out. You know what I mean? And not to say that my childhood was completely terrible because it wasn't, but I remember the arguments. I remember the fighting more than I remember hanging out with my friends. Like I just remember when PlayStation 1 first came around, I literally uh, did nothing but game from the day that PlayStation 1 came out to
Mm-hmm.
today, to being 31 years old. I mean, that's my way of escaping the shit that was going on, and that's my way of escaping it now. And it's uh it's funny how young you can start developing those coping tools without it being told to you that you're coping from shit that's going on around you. Um,
Yeah.
and of course, our parents always try to get us to go outside and hang out with our friends and stuff. And now it's just like we're all inside and don't have any friends to go out with. You know what I mean?
Man, I was grounded more than I was able to go outside.
Right.
Like I guarantee for about half to three quarters of my high school years, I was grounded. Like I wasn't allowed to do shit. And my parents didn't like my friends that I had. My dad did. Because he had his own, friends that they had different views and shit. But my stepmom, she did not. She didn't like any of them. She didn't think they were good enough. She didn't think, you know. And I just, started hanging out with a guy I went to high school with. And when I got back, like we regularly hang out and shit. And I told him, I was like, look, man, I was like, your family, I was like, y'all kind of helped me out through a lot of shit. He's like, yeah, I know. He's like, we saw what you were going through. Cause I would go to his house and my stepmom would show up at his house and his mom would answer the door and she'd be like, where's Vince? And his mom would be like, he's not here. Knowing damn well I'm sitting inside his fucking room. But she's like, he's not here. She's like, well, that's his bike. And his mom would be like, I just bought that for my son. That's not his bike. So they would always, protect me and shit on that. Crazy shit.
Yeah, and my brother and sister and my birthday all kind of fall within like months of each other. So when my sister's in May, my brother's in July, and I'm in August. So when my sister's birthday is around, it's towards the end of school. Cameron's is right in the middle of summer. Mine is literally right before we went back to school.
Yeah.
So it was always kind of preparing to go back to school kind of thing, and back to school disguised as, oh, here's your birthday present, here's some clothes. Just kidding, that's school clothes. um and I don't really remember anything outside of going to Astro Skate to really say that a birthday as a child really stuck out to me. Like I remember they used to read like um birthdays when we were in school, when we were going back to school and stuff. And my birthday is the beginning of August, so like right there when school started. My birthday would just barely fall under the line of not being announced because it was in the middle or the end of summer. Um, and I just always felt like I was left out because my name was never read on the program or anything like that. Um, I think the last well, not the last birthday. Um, the birthday that sticks out to me the most is my 21st birthday. Um, that was the first time I ever got drunk to the point of it being chaotic. Like, so I apparently took my pants off at the beach. I stole a construction sign and put it in my car. Um, I got dropped in the middle of an Applebee's parking lot because I was so drunk. Um, it was a night that it was the best night I'd never remembered. I remember my friends telling me the day after how crazy I was drunk, and I haven't got drunk since, and that was 10 years ago now. That was the one and only time I've ever been trashed, like ever. And to this day, there's things about that day. When I look back at pictures, it's just like Jesus Christ. Like that was the biggest celebration I ever had uh, up to that point. And before that, 18, 19, 20, like none of that. I don't remember having a birthday that ever really stuck out to me. Um, Going through like high school yourself and going to like when we started turning into quote unquote legal adults. how did you view birthdays versus how you view birthdays now? Like, has it changed at all? Has it um, given you a different perspective on life now that you have your own kids?
So, going through high school and shit, I don't really remember having any parties or anything. Uh, we would go out to eat. That would be what we would go do. And, um, my dad passed 2009, right before school got out. So that kind of threw a whole damper on the summer. My birthday's in August. Didn't really do anything for that. Just kind of got back into school and football and shit just to keep my mind off shit. So I really didn't celebrate then. The following year, I got shot right before school got out, right before graduation. And I was still recovering from that when my birthday came around. So I didn't really celebrate. Then I ended up moving to Texas because I went down this little downward spiral. Had some friends out there, moved in with them. Didn't really do anything because then I, got in trouble, got on probation, did that whole thing. I did celebrate my 21st, which I probably shouldn't have because I was on probation. I got completely fucking trashed. But I made it back to the house, made it back without, anything going down. Friend gave me a ride, didn't get in trouble. Did a couple years of like not doing shit, staying low. And then Clarissa and I, we were hanging out and shit. She was my best friend back in Texas, one of my best friends back in Texas. And we would always throw a joint birthday parties because mine is August 26th and hers was August 29th. So we would just get together and throw a big ass rager and party for that. Nothing more than just fucking drunken debauchery, but I mean, it was a celebration of it. And then when she passed is when I kind of just stopped celebrating it. Like I kind of just didn't really get into it anymore because the person that I was celebrating with when I was, hanging out and shit, she was gone. So, and she died. She actually died 6 days before my birthday and then got laid to rest on my birthday. So the day that she got laid to rest, we went to Buffalo Wild Wings. And I had been working my ass off and I had a good chunk of change set up that we just got completely sloshed at Buffalo Wild Wings and ended that out like that. Since then, I really hadn't put much thought into it. Like people buy me gifts and shit, which I'm not a big gift person. Like there's more things to spend your money on. Like if you have kids, spend it on them. Like I'd rather you fucking get them something than fucking buy me something. Fucking let's go do something instead of buying me something. Because that time that you spend with somebody, those memories that you have, that's a lot better than a gift. It's a longer lasting gift, really. And this year is going to be the first year that I actually have done like a party type thing, cookout party, since Clarissa passed. And it's going to be different. We're going to do a little barbecue type shit, get everybody together, just hang out and have a good time. But having kids and all that, I lean more towards I don't like gifts. Gifts are cool, if you're thinking of somebody when you're like passing through somewhere and you're like, oh shit, that looks dope. I think so and so would like this. Let me get that. Not just oh shit, it's your birthday. Let me buy you this fucking $200 thing that you don't need.
Right.
And for like when people ask me about my kids and shit, it's kind of it's a soft spot because I'm like, no, I'd rather like if you want to fucking do something for them, like take them to a museum, go take them out to the park, go take them fishing, go take them hunting, like create some memories. Don't fucking overload with material shit.
Right.
That's just my thought process on it, though.
Yeah, and I feel like, it's definitely important to make memories opposed to materialistic things, like you said. And it's interesting that, and I kind of say the same thing around Christmas. Like, I'm the only person that I know besides maybe my grandmother that still does cards, like birthday cards, Christmas cards. And
Yeah.
my buddy Caleb said that to me. He's like, I think you're the only person that I know that gives cards. And I said, I feel like when you're giving out cards, you're giving a piece of yourself to that person. Like, I will take the time to write out Christmas cards to people and, say something nice about them, or say something kind, or say I see you in whatever way that I feel like writing in that card. Um, I feel like it's kind of the same when it comes to celebrating somebody's birthday. Is, create that memory with somebody. Like you said, you would rather somebody take your kids to go somewhere opposed to buying them whatever. And I can appreciate that. I feel like there's nothing wrong with buying a gift when they're like young enough to where I guess they can't really tell the difference between going to a museum and receiving a gift, kind of thing. Like, when they're like young, but like when they start getting to the point where they can have conversations with you, and all those conversations, make sense, and there's understanding between the two of you, then that's the point of, you take them to museums, take them fishing, whatever. And I feel it's important to make memories in any cost, because, for me personally, and I live by these simple words that I heard from John Cena, who everybody who knows me, he is my hero. He's my favorite human being on the planet, and he says earn every day. And I feel like when I hear those words, to me, it's, by the end of the day, when you're laying down to go to sleep, did you accomplish what you wanted to accomplish for that day? Did you lay around and do nothing all day and have a non-productive day? Great, you succeeded. Did you do all the things that you were going to do in the house that you said you were going to do? Great, you succeeded. You can go to sleep. Um, I feel like when your birthdays start coming around, and going back to when you lost your dad and when you lost Clarissa, I feel like grief is something that, when it hits you in certain ways, whether it's around your birthday, whether it's the holidays that you used to spend with that person, I feel like it makes you appreciate every birthday that much more, and every day that you're given the opportunity to, I guess, essentially do more for yourself and the circle that you present yourself in. When Amy first, when she passed away in 2020, it was about just about a month before my birthday, and Santi passed away a couple days after my birthday. So essentially, like your situation with your dad and with Clarissa, just kind of hand in hand with each other around your birthday, and around, whatever important events you had going on in your life at the time. And you start teaching yourself that you got to be numb, because you don't want to feel anything without that person, without them celebrating the birthday with you. Like, having the joint birthday thing had to have been the hardest thing in the world when you couldn't do that anymore. And like you said, you essentially stayed mentally numb to the fact that it was your birthday and you didn't celebrate it, um, or quote unquote celebrate it, um, like you're going to this year. And I wonder, has it gotten to the point where you've appreciated every birthday that you get now, since she passed away, since your dad passed away?
Yeah, I think now, obviously, I was in a bad headspace there for a while. I still
Yeah.
kind of am, to some degree, but now I find myself more in a position that there are people that I actually want to celebrate and do things around. I got my kids. Uh, I got all my friends and shit back here in Arizona that I hadn't been around in so long, that when I got back, it was just like like no time had passed. Fucking, oh shit, you're back. Hell yeah, let's get together. Let's hang out. Let's, catch up on fucking 13 years of not being around. And uh I don't know, it takes me back to a time where before everything went, sideways and shit. And it's a little more comforting in that aspect because these are people that like I would fight for. Like I got their back 100%. Like you, like fucking these my friends out here, fucking. Now it's just I'm at a point where like there are people that I do actually want to spend time and fucking celebrate with, and finally got to that point.
Right.
Whereas it
And
was
good.
I'll go.
I was just gonna say, were those friends around when your dad passed away, or did you meet them after that?
So my high school buddy John, he's the one who his mom would, cut up for me and be like, yo, he's not here. So he was around definitely before Patty and Duncan. Patty, actually, because Duncan came along after I was in Texas. They're married. Patty and I worked together like right after my dad had passed, or a year or two after my dad had passed. It was right after I got shot because I started working at this place. And um, so she's been there, since day one. And then when I moved to Texas and shit and got in my trouble, like she was the one that I called and I was like, hey, you're not going to hear from me for, a couple years. So this is what went down. I'll reach out whenever I get back out. But yeah.
Um, do you ever honor your dad or Clarissa? Just in general. I mean, like, do you have like any kind of ritual or like any kind of like day you set aside for either one of them to like kind of in memory of?
So my dad was a big motorcycle rider. That's
Right.
where I get it from. He died on a motorcycle. So normally around, or not around, but the day of, um, he actually just got put into the Peace Officers Fallen Memorial, the Fallen Peace Officers Memorial in Phoenix. So his name is forever ingrained in that memorial up there. So what I normally do is I'll ride up there. I'll go, spend a couple minutes with that, take off, ride down to Tucson, and go sit at his grave for a little bit, and then just ride around for the rest of the day because it's what he would have wanted. We used to do memorial rides for him right after he passed. We'd ride down to Tombstone, eat, drink, have a couple beers, and then ride back. Uh, Clarissa, that little fucker, giggles. Um, it never failed whenever I would go to a party and shit. I always had a handle of Wild Turkey 101. It's kind of where my nickname White Trash came from because it's the same fucking initials. Uh, and for some reason, I would yell out, White Trash is back, but that's besides the point. We would always just sit there and take shots of the Wild Turkey all night whenever we would drink or whatever she was drinking. So normally on my birthday, I'll just, get a little bottle of Wild Turkey and take a couple shots to commemorate.
I always feel like um, when when either one of their days, whether it's Amy, whether it's Santi, um, when their days come around, I always find just doing those little rituals that I have for them every time that their birthdays or whatever come by. I have that balloon I like to light in the air for them and drink Amy's favorite Tennessee honey whiskey. Um, and then with Santi, um, I've known Santi since high school. We didn't start getting close until I moved back down to Florida when he reached out to me in 2018, and from there, you know, we always bounce off each other conversations. We would learn a lot off of each other. You know, there was a lot of mental health related things that he was always wondering about. Like I remember one day he called me. He's like, Chris, I needed to ask you something, and I'm not saying this to be funny, but like, what is being triggered? Because uh, there's obviously the political joke about triggering somebody, right? And he asked me, he's like, what does it mean when somebody's feeling triggered about something? And I told him, I said, well, it's it's trauma based. It's I know there's the political joke triggered, and then there's the trauma based triggers, and people who have gone through childhood stuff. Um, a trigger is like a mental landmine when you hit it. Some triggers are a lot worse than others, obviously, as you know. um, and every time I think of our conversations, that one sticks out the most to me because he would always tell me like, "Oh, I talked about you in church today about all the great things," and I always update everybody in my group and everything of what you're doing, and everybody in my church group is rooting for you. I'm like, that's awesome, man. Like, and he knows I wasn't big on religion, um,
Yeah.
but all the time we would always connect on mental health related stuff. So like when I started this podcast and when the group started blowing up the way that it did, you know, uh, the podcast was my way of honoring Satya. He was one of the biggest cheerleaders for the group. He was there seeing how much progress was being made. And I remember the last time I physically saw him was a couple days after my birthday. He was bringing back Mortal Kombat, and it was the day that I bought. It was the day I bought a new shotgun, and I told him, I said, "Hey, do you want to see the shotgun?" And he's like, "Oh, you got a shotgun!" Like he was so excited, like a kid in a candy store kind of thing. And I handed it to him. You just see him standing in the doorway, just like holding it. He thought he was a big guy, just holding the shotgun in his arm, cocking it, and like making like a zombie threat. He's like, "Come get some bitches!" And that's my last memory of him, man. And the last like conversation I had with him was we were supposed to go to dinner the day that he passed away, and something came up where I had to cancel plans with him and I had to reschedule. And I'm grateful that the last words I said to him was "I love you, bro." Like the very last thing that I said to him. That call that I got the day when George told me he passed away was probably the worst call I've ever got in my life. So I feel like when birthdays come around, post 21st birthday, anything after my 21st, um, I try to do everything I could to celebrate every single year because tomorrow's never promised. My birthday could happen. I could turn 31 and then not make it to day two of being 31. And I feel like so many people don't appreciate um, don't appreciate birthdays, and and I get it because much like Christmas, it just kind of turned into a Hallmark type of thing where it has no meaning behind it. It has no genuine emotion behind it because just like, oh well, for instance, um, the last podcast I recorded with Nicole, um, we were talking about having divorced parents, and on the surface, it's great to go to um, two different houses for birthdays, right? Because you get double the presents, quote unquote. But looking back at it now, it was oh well, I bought more presents than your dad, or I did more than your dad, kind of thing. Um, and basically, I wish that people would appreciate birthdays more than they do now. Um, it's not a Hallmark holiday. It's a reset button on another 365 days. You
Yeah.
know, it's another chance to do better for yourself physically and emotionally.
Yep.
Um, So as of today, like 2023, before you're getting ready to turn your next age, what what is the most important thing that you have learned, I guess, about yourself in terms of like celebrations?
Man, I'm with you on the aspect of like just celebrating because you don't know if the next day is your last. I mean, I work in a field that one wrong, if my head's not in the game, I can I can die.
Right.
I worked on some shit the other day where a little sketchy, didn't set some safety stuff up, and they came out and was like, "Hey man, you got to set that up." And I was like, "Look man, if I go today, I go. This isn't gonna stop it." So that's my thing. Is now I'm just kind of like I took it for granted for so long that now I'm at this point where at least like you said, if today's my last day, did I make the best of it? Did I impact the people that I should impact? Did I change anybody's life, or did I just barely make it through for myself?
Right. Do you have any birthdays that you remember where your parents were together with you, and then like does it ever stick out? Like, do you have any memory of that at all?
Nah. So my biological mom and my dad divorced when I was like 1 or 2 years old. Um, my dad was a single dad till like I was 11, and then for the most part, I was always in trouble, so I never could do it. It was more survival mode, honestly, than it was good shit.
Right. Um, my parents being divorced at a really young age, I don't remember. I don't remember any of my birthdays where they were together like at all. Um, anything like childhood related stuff besides the bad shit, I don't really remember too much of the good stuff because, like I said, when my brother was born, um, and this isn't a knock at him. So Cameron, when you listen to this, this isn't a knock at you at all. But when he was born, all the attention was on him, and that's how it was growing up. Um, I mentioned it in a previous podcast that my mom used me and my brother as weapons against each other. Um, and it created a lot of tension. It created a lot of arguments when we were kids. Um, and it's resulted into him and I not having the best relationship today. Um,
Yeah.
we talk a lot more now that we don't live in the same house, and uh, you know, being adults, and him having a relationship and me healing with through therapy and stuff. Um, him and I never had the best relationship growing up. I can't think of a time that it was him and I against the world kind of thing. It was just more. We had divorced parents. He was 4 when they divorced. I was 8. So I was in a position mentally where I thought everything was my fault because you're at that age, excuse me, and you don't understand divorce. And it took time to understand what divorce even was, because I wanted Christmases with them together, I wanted my birthdays with them together, and it just would never happen. Um,
Yeah.
and then when my sister was born, um, it got even worse of me just being completely ignored. And and again, this isn't a knock on my siblings, but I was quite literally invisible when my sister was born and when my brother was born. And that came from my grandfather's mouth. He's like, I always noticed how your mom would treat you, opposed to how you would treat Cameron and Caleb. And you were always getting yelled at. You were always just kind of like berated and talked down to all the time. And
Yeah.
I took it. I took a lot of shit when I was a kid, man. Like, um, I think the early not earliest one of the memories I have with one of the relationships my mom was in was with my stepfather, quote unquote. After my mom and dad got divorced, she didn't legally marry this guy, but they were married. I don't know. But I remember them getting to a really bad argument, and I walked out there and I yelled "stop" at the top of my lungs because they were yelling at each other. He pushed me as hard as he could, uh, and I landed on my bed. My head hit the wall. Um, like I said, man, I took way too much shit as a kid, and I don't remember birthdays. I don't really remember holidays. Um, I think the when it came to like Christmas time, again, it was just kind of like I bought more than your dad, or your dad didn't get you this, so I couldn't get it, blah blah blah. And it was just that mentality was like my whole life
Yeah.
was it's your birthday, we wanted to get you this, but your dad didn't get it and I couldn't afford it, blah blah blah. It was your dad, your dad, your dad. Um, and my mom created this whole big thing of me being afraid of my father for whatever reason. And it was always like, you can't talk to him without judgment. Um, when my mom found out I was smoking weed at 14, she made me terrified of my dad, saying how pissed off he was about it. And just a lot of shit, man. And I remember when my mom and dad found out my brother was smoking, and it was the complete opposite reaction. My dad was so happy he had another kid that smoked weed. And it just, there was so much of the mentality that was really shitty towards me, and it didn't reflect onto my siblings.
Yeah.
And I don't remember having like any big birthdays with my dad. I think half the time he forgot it was my birthday, truthfully. Um, my mom last year, her and I's birthday is 3 days apart. She called me at the end of my birthday last year, and she's like, "I was just calling to say happy birthday, and I didn't get you a car. I didn't send you a card because I." And this is her words, exact words. I didn't get you a card, and here's the fucked up sentence, because I forgot it was your birthday. Our birthday is 3 days apart. 3 days. How do you forget a birthday that's anyway? Um, you know how my relationship is with her, and most of my listeners do as well, so I don't need to get too deep into that. But um, most of our dinners, I think, like when I was like early adult, we did together, and then she moved out of the state, and that stopped. Um, yeah, man, it was always about money with her. And I think that's why for a really long time I struggled celebrating birthdays, because it's just like money, 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 money. And this year, me and Caleb booked a flight to go to North Carolina for a couple days. Um, I'm doing it not only for myself, but I'm also doing it for Santi. I'm getting a tattoo for him on his 2 years. My tattoo appointment is on his 2 years. So yeah, man, I feel like more people should celebrate their birthdays, should celebrate another chance to be given the opportunity to celebrate that birthday. You know what I mean? Like, and I know I realize I just said celebrate within like two words of each other, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Um, how old are your kids again?
Luca is turning 4 next month, and Otto will be turning 2 in December.
Okay, so they're both fairly young and close to each other in age. Um, do you ever like do anything special for them on their birthday? Like I know you said memories kind of thing. Like what was the best thing you've done with them on their birthday so far?
So far, honestly, man, I haven't done much. I was always the worker in the relationship, so I was pulling 3 to 4 jobs. Actually, not four, 2 to 3 jobs, um, to make sure bills and shit were getting taken care of. Because all that shit. So honestly, I always worked. Um, this year, I'm gonna try to take Luca to like the zoo. He loves the zoo. Um, we were gonna go. They have a prickly pear festival on my birthday, which is August 26th, and I was gonna take him to that. But middle of the summer in Arizona, having a 4-year-old out in the heat all day is probably not a good idea.
Yeah.
So I think I'll just take him to the zoo, hopefully, and go from there. Otto, um, his 1 year birthday um, was last December, and you know the story between me and my ex. We're separated. We're trying to go through the divorce and shit. And she had just moved to Arizona in November of last year, so I didn't get to spend any of that with him. And then, you know, my stepmom passed, so that pushed me moving out here a lot quicker. So,
You know, it's you touched on something pretty interesting that um, I kind of wanted to bring up now that I mentioned my father not remembering anything with my dad was the provider. You know, the guy who makes sure that food is on the table or that a cake was to be bought or that there's money in the account to make sure that kid can have a birthday. You know, it's a perspective that I didn't realize that I needed to hear until you said that. Because, you know, when, you know, you, I guess technically speaking, you're single dad, right? Single dad. Um, and then having to like be that provider and at the same time try to be the loving and caring dad. Not saying that you don't love and care for your kids. You get what I'm saying when you say that. Um, but like trying to be the loving and caring dad that celebrates everything with your kid with your kids and uh, making sure that they feel like you know how somebody's supposed to feel on their birthday. Like the whole day is about them. And
yeah.
I think it's interesting that we live in a society that doesn't acknowledge how hard it is for not only single fathers, but just like fathers in general that have to be just a provider and can't always be the emotionally supportive dad either because at the same time because they're too busy making sure that the lights are on for that kid to see that cake that was bought for that kid to have friends come over and watch their favorite movie or show or whatever. So I just wonder, like, obviously you and I are fairly close in terms of like what we speak on, like mental health stuff, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the question I have for you is, what does that do to you mentally if you can't make something happen for your kids? Because like I said, that provider part of the conversation I feel like is important and doesn't get brought up nearly enough.
It fucks with me. It
Yeah,
fucks me. I'll be honest with you. I pay every single bill that was accrued in that marriage, every one of them, including the car payment on a car that I don't even fucking use. Um, so at the end of the day, I can't do shit. I'm paying my bills and I'm paying somebody else's bills. You know, I, I send or try to at least 400 every check without going. Hold on, dude. We'll play with that in a minute. Um, uh, without going through child support and all that shit. And then, you know, I get the notice from the bank that like, hey, y'all are, because the deal was she would pay her car payment. And the bank calls me and says, hey, y'all are 2 months behind on the payment. If you don't start making a payment, it's going to get repoed, which I'm not gonna let happen because that fucks me. Um, so just this last month, I've spent almost 2 G's on sending it and making sure everything over here is taken care of while still maintaining my shit. And the fact that like I don't ever have the money or the time because now I'm working overtime, working, harvest and shit kicked in out here, and to go do shit. Like
Right.
myself, like I want to go take the kids out on the weekend. I don't want to be stuck in this fucking apartment all weekend long. Like I want to go do shit, and I want to take them out to the museum or the parks or the fucking zoos or the aquarium and shit. But I can't because I am paying on 2 houses basically.
Yeah. And just to throw this out there as well, I didn't mean to get like super personal or like try to like hit a landmine at all, man. Um, so just like hopefully that didn't hurt you just to talk about that because I know it fucks with you, man, and I know how hard you work just to make sure that that the lights are on. And I think the most important part of this conversation is awareness. Is that the conversation that I try to always have when it comes to just men's health in general, and that being number one is how shitty and again for my listeners this isn't to say that one side has it worse than others, but in a society of us trying to chase that equality conversation that the mom is going to be on the same level as the dad and co-parenting be a thing, we are in a society where men like Vince here are metaphorically and literally killing themselves to make sure those kids have a house over their a roof over their head, food in their stomachs. And again, not to say that single moms aren't doing the same thing, but I know a lot more single dads struggling to either get custody of their kids or being able to spend time with their kids because of how hard they work. My dad paid all the bills, made sure my mom could go and do all the inappropriate things that she did with their money. And one day we come home to no electric being on because she didn't have to work because my dad worked. Um, and I'm sure Vince maybe a similar situation you're in where you're paying so much and sometimes the money that's supposed to go to something may or may not go to that something because of, you know, where can I stick this knife next kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm sure it goes to where it needs to go. It's a lot.
Yeah, and I feel like I wish as a society we can treat this as it is, man. Like I hate seeing you struggle, and obviously we've had the conversations of when you were in a bad part or a bad point in what's going on. And I say this every single time that I get a chance to say it, man, but men's suicide numbers should not be this high. It should not get to a point of men giving up because they can't see their kids, can't spend time with their kids, can't spend money that they want to spend on their kids because of lack of co-parenting, lack of compassion between the two parties. Um, I pray for you every day. I really do. I want nothing but the best for you and the kids, and hate that the situation you're in with the ex. I hate that more than anything in the world because you're a genuine guy, and I know you bust your ass just to get what you have now. So just know that coming from me, and I'm sure I speak for a couple others too, that we do see you. We do see how hard you're working on everything that you're doing, man. So don't think it's for nothing, man, because you're definitely seen.
Yeah.
And with that being said, I need to take a drink of water really quick because Um, but yeah, man. So you have a barbecue plan for your birthday and have a bunch of friends come over. Um, and I know before we started recording, you were talking about possibly going to therapy again.
Yep.
Um, so for you, I guess right now with riding the motorcycle when you can, that's your form of therapy,
Yeah.
and hopefully it helps you in some sense.
It does. Riding in a truck, I can turn the music up, to drown out and shit. And when it's me and I've got the motorcycle and I don't wear a helmet just because I know if I wear the helmet, if I do wreck, it's not going to save anything. I mean, my dad wore a helmet the day he died. So I just live this kind of, if it happens, it happens. And, uh, but just the sound of the motor when I'm going down the road and, feeling the wind hit my face, it opens up my clarity in my eyes a little more to where I can actually think shit through, because you got hours sitting there, hours just getting after it. And, in a truck, you can kind of disassociate, or in a car, you can disassociate. But if you disassociate on that bike, you're done. So,
Right.
got to stay a little more present in what's going on. So, when I do hit that road, that's when that's when I become the most clear and have the most thoughts because I'm able to actually process through them.
Right. So, man, before we close out today's session, as you know, I like to read quotes on whatever topic we're covering. In this case, I found a quote just for men's mental health because, again, very strong on that message, very strong on single dads and the struggles that they have with their kids, or just men in general. I think we all need to do a better job at reaching out to each other and making sure our fellow man is good, man. But before I read that quote, do you have any closing words or like any quote that has kept you going these last couple months that you want to say to the listeners and all?
No, not really. I don't have anything.
Okay. Um, so for my listeners, I have a quote from a Mr. Joe Plum, and it says, "I'm a man, and no less of a man for admitting I'm not okay, and for openly talking about the constant struggle and battle I face with myself every single day." So for any of the fellow guys that do listen to my podcast, that I do have a pretty solid foundation and relationship with, speak out, man. It's the strongest thing that you can do, regardless of what society tells you that a man is supposed to do. Yes, we are protectors. Yes, we are providers, but we are also human beings. We are also worthy of all good things, and we are worthy of love. So, for all the people in my life, including you, Vince, I greatly appreciate you all. I appreciate you being on today's podcast today, Vince. It's definitely been enlightening, a lot of new perspectives offered. So again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day for me.
Yes, sir.
Um, for all my listeners, some really big things on the way, bigger platform that the podcast is going to be on whenever that does happen. Um, stay tuned for more updates on the podcast just to see where everything is going to be at. Until next time, you can catch me at Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. Until then, be well, and as always, be gentle with yourselves. Until